This podcast is supported by Music Theater of Wenatchee, celebrating 64 years of bringing stories to life. From show-stopping musicals to powerful plays, the Music Theater of Wenatchee stage is where stories come alive. Now they are writing the next chapter, and you can help make it happen. To support the next act of community theater in Wenatchee, visit annex.mtow.org and donate today.
Opening night club.
We're not opening a nightclub.
It's the opening night club. We can't wait to watch an opening night show, because on opening night we always go with our opening night club. Opening night club.
Welcome to the Opening Night Club podcast. This is the podcast where every week we get together and discuss and celebrate opening night theater all over Central Washington. I'm your host, Kevin McKee, and with me today is director, choreographer, and my friend, Jaime Donegan. How you doing, Jaime?
I am doing great. What was your name again? Kevin.
I'm just
Kevin, my
guy.
good friend.
I'm just this guy.
Just a guy who's doing opening night shows, which is awesome.
Opening
I love
Night
it.
Club. Now, you're unfamiliar with the podcast, so we'll have to train you as we
club.
go.
Opening night
It's
club.
part of the club. If you go to opening night theater, you can be part of the club too.
ONC.
That's right. That's
I
right.
like it.
I will buy drinks for people just to get people to go to opening night. That's how badly we want to support opening night theater in
I
town.
love that. I mean, opening nights are some of the most special shows you can ever possibly see, because you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if everybody's ready or not. There's a special kind of tension and excitement.
And the cast needs a lot of people. I mean, there's been bad opening nights as a cast where there's just nobody out there. If the theater is half full on opening night, you don't get that feedback. You don't know if you're funny. You don't know if the songs work. You don't know if the choreography stinks, because you just don't get the feedback, which that's, as an actor, you give out energy and you need it to come back.
Right.
And so that's part of, let's get the people who are enthusiastic about theater, will be good laughers, and get them to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that you're doing this.
Oh, well, good.
This is so good.
So we do want to talk about a couple things that you've got going right now, and then we can do a deep dive into Jaime.
Okay.
We'll do a deep dive into Jaime and how we ended up with Follies and Hot August Nights,
Okay.
and how all that comes together. So we were discussing...
I'm down for the journey.
You're, okay.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So we were discussing in the last episode that we've got 2 auditions coming up. The first one is probably going to be after this comes out on Monday, and so this is going to be coming out on Mondays of callbacks for 1776.
Correct.
Okay. So tell us about 1776. We talked about it a little bit. What is your vision for this show, and what are you excited about?
Well, first, let me tell you just a little bit how I got there, because it's kind of fun. I have been rolling around ideas of shows. I keep a list of things that I'm thinking about. And last year I took a break from directing Hot August Nights, which I absolutely needed. You have to get off the hamster wheel sometimes. And it was our 12th show, and I was very excited to turn it over to my friend Christine Capehart to direct, and she did a great job. And it was really nice to step away. I didn't really come up with a title during my time off that was speaking to me. I had a couple of ideas, but nothing was just like going, it's now. Like you have to do this now. And the show ended this summer, and I was at a place called Even Keel, a little roadhouse up in Chelan, with a choreographer that I frequently bring in, Bethany Elkin, and Mike and Locke, and we were just sitting there talking about shows and everything, and all of a sudden my brain went, oh my God, next year is the 250th anniversary of America. And so I sort of started thinking about 1776, which is a play that I was in when I was 17 years old.
Really?
And I fell in love with it. But
what part did you play?
I played the courier.
Oh, okay.
And which has a really great song.
Okay.
That comes out of nowhere. It's kind of a weird show. But I went from that show thinking about that. So I was like, Mike, do you know this song? He's like, I don't know it at all. I don't never heard of it. And Bethany did. And she's like, intriguing. And kind of was like, okay, whatever. And then Bethany and I went on a road trip for a week, and we talked about other possibilities, like in a similar vein. And I don't know whether you ever saw, there was a wonderful show on Broadway that I still would love to do here sometime called Bloody, Bloody Andrew Jackson.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but I've heard great things about it.
It's hysterical, and it is all about the journey of Andrew Jackson. And in fact, Matt Cadman used to use that show to teach history.
Okay.
And he was like in love with that show. And he was like,
that's probably
whatever.
where I heard it. I'm sure that he had brought it up at some point.
Because it's very satirical. It's hilarious. You really have to have a lot of people that have excellent comic timing because each character plays a lot of things. Anyway, we rolled that around and we decided on it. We're going to do it. We're going to do this show. And especially because of what I saw in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels this summer, I thought there's a lot of fresh new faces that I haven't seen. I haven't worked with them, but they're funny and they're just also a lot of fun and seem like a great group of people to play with. So based on that, I was thinking, that could be a really good show. And then another 2-3 weeks went by and something just wasn't sitting right with me. And for me, if I'm going to do a show, I want it to really sit. And I called Bethany one day and I was like, you're probably going to think I'm really weird and crazy, but I feel like Bloody, Bloody Andrew Jackson is very specific because it's an emo rock musical.
Yeah.
And it's very specific. I feel like we could get a lot more mileage and a lot more interesting messages out into the world by going back to this 1969 Tony Award winning Best Musical, 1776. And she said, I have been thinking the same thing. So once we got there, and that took, I don't know, a month and a half.
Well, and you talk to your choreographer and she says, 1776, which it's not a dance show.
No. It's not
written. It's not a dance show.
It's not a dance show. There are occasional, like there's one number in it that is typically a waltz number.
The minuet,
Well, the minuet is the cool, considerate men, but the waltz number with Thomas Jefferson and his wife and Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. And so that's usually the only dancing that's in the entire show. And so I said, what if we don't make this, I don't want it to be a dance show, but I want it to be highly choreographed. I want the movements of Congress to be like the different colonies until they all begin to start to move as one. So it's a building movement situation. And definitely not dance, but very choreographed. And there was an interesting version of it that came out in 2020. There was an all-female cast.
Yes.
And it had a lot of that sort of similar thing, which I'd seen clips of it. I never got to see it. I'm not sure that female cast worked entirely because they dressed them mostly as men. But it didn't matter. The energy was great. And I think people really loved it, but then COVID killed that. So it sort of died on Broadway, had a brief tour. The music, even though it won Best Musical, it's actually really a play with music. Okay. And so there's only about 5 songs in the show. And there's some, it's a lot of dialogue. And in fact, there's some really funny little things. There are 30 minutes that happen in the first act with no music whatsoever. And so the musicians union on Broadway said, well, we're not going to sit in a pit for 30 minutes. And so it was the first time that the music union was able to get up, take a break for a 15-minute break.
And leave the pit. And come back. And that's never happened before, and it's never happened since. So I thought that's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah.
Because it's very wordy, but it's so well written. Peter Stone, who wrote it, is he was mainly a TV writer, did a few other Broadway shows after this, but this is very, very smart writing, and the banter, the back and forth, and the give and take is really very, very, very interesting. Another interesting thing is when the movie came out a few years after it won Best Musical, 1973, the movie was coming out, and there's this song in it called Cool, Cool, Considerate Men. And it's these conservative men who are very wealthy and entitled. And they're like, why should we do this? Why should we stick our nose out there? We can just float along and do whatever. And Richard Nixon called the producer of the film, who he knew, and said, I want that number removed from the film.
Wow.
And the producer said, well, why would you want that? And he said, because people will think you're talking about my administration, and I don't want that.
Wow.
So it was removed from the film and then later on added back in. So this, even though it seems kind of tame to me in the way it's written, this show pushes buttons. And that's always a joy for me.
Well, that was something that I think when I heard that you were doing this, Hot August Nights, traditionally it has been edgy. And 1776, it's not traditionally an edgy show.
I think it's edgy in a different way.
Yeah.
It portrays a group of people that are putting their lives on the line. And when I think about Congress now, they have nothing to, these guys, as soon as they put pen to paper,
put their name on
could
there,
be hanged.
Yeah.
That's very serious.
Yeah.
And now our Congress, all they ever have to lose is the next election. And they don't have anything really on the line except for that. So that really interests me, when people are willing to put themselves on the line to be killed. That's some edgy right there. Sorry, I said my bad. We can edit that out. That's edgy. That is edgier to me than the sexy stuff of, some of my other productions. It's like developing those characters is so much more interesting to me. And the way that they're written is so beautiful. It's like the banter is so witty and it's so good. And so anyway, I'm really excited about doing this, but if we want to I don't know how much we can get into this, but there's there's a song, and it's typically a throwaway song that I feel like has always just been used for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
When Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin meet Martha Jefferson for the first time, and they want to know, what do you see in this guy? He's a odd duck. Thomas Jefferson is an odd duck. He's certainly a brainiac, and he's a very smart person, but he's a very odd duck. And she says, he plays the violin. And then you listen to the song, and I'm like, oh, this isn't necessarily about the violin. This is a very, very provocative song. And as soon as I thought about that, I was like, oh my God, because she's going, she's moaning and groaning. And I was like, well, that's really an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
And then another number in the show is back and forth between Abigail and John Adams. And I just was in Philadelphia, and I had never been to the Revolutionary War Museum because it's happened since I left when I lived in Philadelphia. They have a big show thing, and it's all narrated by Abigail Adams. Abigail Adams is considered one of the most brilliant first ladies we've ever had. I think I'm going to do some interesting things with her role.
Yeah.
By combining some roles. So she kind of does a first act bit, and then she's done, and Martha does a first act bit and done. And I was thinking, well, what if Martha came back as Thomas Jefferson's nemesis in the show? And what if Abigail comes in and is the person that comes in very late in the show who tips the balance and makes it happen? this is also to condense a cast as well. It's a 24-person cast.
It's huge. It's a huge cast.
Trying to bring it down to 18, and I'm down to 20 right now.
Okay.
So I'm feeling pretty good about
Perfect.
that. But I feel like those are the kind of things that it gives more importance to those traditionally female roles that, in the case of this musical, are kind of throwaway people. They serve a little tiny purpose, but then they're done.
Yeah.
And it's all just the men of Congress. So by also opening up the casting to having anyone play any role, that's kind of it's very scary, but it's also really exciting to me because why not? Why not?
I think if there's people out there listening to the podcast, this is how a director takes a look at a show, that these are the choices that you make. And thanks for kind of sharing that these are the things when you look at a show, you say, oh, this song could be interpreted this way, and I like it in this way. I can give this character an arc that they wouldn't normally have. I can give this actor the chance to do something interesting that doesn't normally get done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Follies, we've got auditions.
Completely different.
It's a big swing over to Follies. We've got Follies coming up. And Follies traditionally starts with not auditions, but they start with a party.
Right.
And then we follow up with auditions. And I was trying to explain this to somebody else. Can you just explain what that process works, how that happens? Because I know they have the party, and there's been times where I've worked with you several times on it, and there's some times where I audition, sometimes I don't. You just say, here's what you're going to do.
Yeah. Well, that's been an interesting thing and an interesting development in what I do with the Follies is because typically in the past, I would go to when I worked for another company, I would go do a show and then I would never go back there again. It was just, I was there. So you don't know anyone, you walk in, it's all fresh and that sort of thing. And I walked onto the Pack stage 26 years ago for the first time. And they had set up a little bit of a show, just like 4 or 5 people entertaining or whatever. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And the Pack was brand new. And I remember feeling something very different there. And I was standing on that stage and thinking, there's a really big musical theater contingent here in this town. And that's not always the case. In fact, it's hardly ever the case. And if there is in other towns, sometimes the musical theater is like, oh, it's the Follies. We don't do that. Well, I felt extremely supported right away as soon as I got here. And that felt really nice and really good. And the first show went off. We had this big party and I was meeting all these people and they were wonderful singers. And I was like, this is great. So 26 years later, I've been the director ever since here. And in 2014, I actually started living here more than I lived anywhere else. And so that is an interesting new take on Follies for me because you guys are the only ones that I do that with. So now I've gotten to know people like you and that I can, if people don't come and audition, it's always wonderful to have the auditions because you find all this new talent and people that you've never seen or heard of before. But I feel comfortable enough now that I can flesh the show out by making some phone calls. And that's a wonderful thing. The Follies is a musical variety show that is open to everyone in the community. Anyone can come be in it, and everyone who wants to be in it is in it. But I also have to have some ringers, some people that I know that are going to deliver, that will keep the show fluid and moving and entertaining. And so that's not always the case in the history of the Follies. I did a wonderful interview with Jane Shebold. I don't know if you ever knew her or not, but she was the president of the Follies Guild, like back in the early days.
The name's familiar, yeah.
And she, it was so fun to sit down with her. She was in her 90s. She was having her little martini while we were doing the interview. And she was telling me, she said, and this is when they used to do it at the Liberty Theater. She said, curtain went up and we were supposed to be doing this dance number. Well, the music started wrong. And we suddenly, none of us knew what we were doing. And her husband, who I think was a doctor in town, looked at her and ran off stage. He was petrified. And she went off stage and she's like, you get back out there right now. We have to do it, whatever. Well, it was a huge hit because it all went wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the Follies. It can all go wrong. And so people came back to see that number again the next night, and they got it all right, and people didn't like it as well. It wasn't as fun. So there's a lot of giving and forgiving in the Follies. It's all community members coming together. For years, I've been doing these shows for 44 years. In the beginning, I thought it was all about the show. What I really found out, and this is what you're doing with this podcast, is it's really about community building. And once I realized that, and local people here taught me that, Jeff Austinson and Jamie Howell taught me that because they were making a documentary about what I do. It ended up being in Wenatchee, but it was supposed to be different places. So they came to my different places as well. And they did interviews with people behind the scenes, and the stories that I heard that I never get to hear, that I never know about. For my 50th birthday, they gave me a DVD of the interviews, and I was just about ready to call it quits, and it changed everything for me. And it made me realize I always want to have a good show with the Follies, and I always want to keep it entertaining, but it's not about the show. It's about all these people coming together, and people make friends, lifelong friends, people that they've met that they never would have met before. And that's the story that I hear over and over and over again, is that people come in and like scared to death, but for some reasons a friend brought them, or they're challenging themselves to do something. And then there's the regulars that are like, get out of my way.
Yeah.
I want to be in every number, that kind of thing. So you get all of that. You get the cross section of the community, and that's a beautiful thing to watch. And then when people say, I made friends that are my lifelong friends that I never knew I was going to have.
Well, we've been encouraging everybody that Follies is kind of the gateway to theater in town, that we do have people that start in the Follies and then they'll try out for other shows, 1776 or other shows, and now they're a theater person in town. But we've also got a lot of people, because I know people through Follies that the only shows they do are Follies. Every 3 years they come out and they do Follies, and I'll see them, around town, and we're friends. And but they're Follies people, and they love it, and that's how they identify.
Yeah, I think hopefully with all theater in a particular community, it's symbiotic, because when I first came here, it was the music theater of Wenatchee people that came, and they were all the ringers in the show, and then there were the community members that came in and did that. And I think without that involvement and that, like, hey, we're here for you, I don't think the Follies would be as successful as they are. So and now I've gotten to know so many of the music theater people, and I've gotten to know Full Circle and the different...
The groups.
Yeah, the different groups of theater here. They're all so wonderful, and they all provide something that is really crucial for the growth of any kind of theater in a community. So when people say, this theater is the deal. No, well, yeah, they are, but this one is too, and this one is too, and this one is too.
There's so much cross-pollination. It's really hard to say that this is the theater, because everybody seems to move around between them pretty frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm happy with our community here. And when I talk about the theater community, it's not just the community theater, it's all of the theaters that we've got, just because everybody seems to work together. Yeah. We talked to Mike Locke on the podcast a while ago, and he works in all of them. He is kind of lead technical director for so many theater groups in town. He's up at Leavenworth. He's working with the high schools and then doing everything at the PAC.
Yeah.
So part of the reason I interviewed him and part of the reason I'm interviewing you is that there's people that maybe they haven't been seen on stage a lot and people aren't familiar with their face, but Lord, we couldn't have the theater here in town without people like you or Mike. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's just been thrilling, actually. I love that I got to, and not credit to me at all, Don Fox.
Yes.
You know Don Fox.
Of course.
Don Fox was the technical director at the PAC, and it was the year that Matt Cadman started as the executive director. And Don called me one day and he goes, the theater, the PAC theater sits empty and they have to lay off all the staff during the summertime.
Yeah, it was dark during the summer every year.
Yeah. He said, what do you think about starting something? And I said, I think it's interesting. Let's explore it. Let's see what we can do. We sat down with Matt. He was literally a week into the job. We sat down and he goes, I'm game. Let's try it. And so we tried it. Our first show was Rocky Horror, and we did that. And this all is because of the Follies. Mm-hmm. These connections all made because of the Follies.
Yeah.
So
that's how you came to town.
Yeah.
That's your first time to town was for Follies.
So there's the theater world that happened because of the Follies. There's all these amazing friendships that I've made in this town because of the Follies. And I work up at a winery in Chelan, and that's because of the Follies. And people come in there and they know me from the Follies.
Yeah.
And they know me from Hot August Nights. And they know me. I get a lot of people that come from, I direct shows in Spokane. I direct shows in Tacoma, Yakima, Longview. So I've been all over Washington, and people come in. So there's a bigger sense of community as well. And I am dedicated to building community. I love the theater here. I try to go to the high school shows as much as I can. I see these young kids, and I remember being that kid, that theater kid in high school. And I just say, God, that person's like amazing. I hope they start auditioning for shows here. Oftentimes, like I did, I left my hometown. One of the coolest things that I love about Wenatchee is that I've heard from so many young people who do leave. They go to college, they move away, but they come back because they realize how good it is here. And not just the quality of life, the quality of friends, the quality of entertainment, the quality of everything. It's a good place. It feels good. And it's why I want to be here now.
Yeah, that's why you're here.
And this is a new thing for me to say because I'm just now officially moving my address here.
Oh.
This is a big deal after 26 years. But it does feel good because I really like it here.
Yeah, good.
And I have made the most amazing friends and love it here.
So you touched on leaving town. Let's go back and let's let Jamie flex about Jamie. Where did you grow up? What part of the country were you from?
Well, I was born in Ohio.
Okay.
And then our family moved to Indiana, northern Indiana, when I was 5. So that's where I grew up, and was really, kind of fun that I grew up in the town where band instruments were made. And so we had a huge marching band. I had no interest in marching band at all, except for the fact that they traveled all over the world because we were huge and all the band instruments were from our town. So I was in, all the singing groups and the theater groups and everything. And then one day I went to my mom and dad and I was like, I need to be in the marching band. And they're like, well, why? What instrument are you going to play? I don't want to play an instrument, but they have a flag corps and I'm interested in doing that because I just really wanted to travel.
Yeah.
So, right out the gate, we were at the Macy's parade and then we're in the Orange Bowl and the Rose Bowl. And then I turned 16 the day I arrived in Hawaii for the King Kamehameha parade. And then we went to Europe and there were all these
You went
things.
to Europe with the marching band?
Yes. It was a big deal.
Okay.
So I had personal reasons. I just wanted to travel.
I understand that. I get it.
So anyway, I did it and I loved it. And they finally got me to play an instrument. I played the baritone for a little while, which was very, very unexciting. But
I played the baritone. I think that's a good instrument.
You did?
Yes, I did. I played baritone and tuba. They moved me to tuba in high school.
I was too small for tuba. They, especially in the wind, they couldn't do that. I could barely hold the flag in the wind. I was like 98 pounds and 5'6". But I had a great time doing that. So I grew up, did a lot of theater in the local community groups. And
so did you do theater in high school or?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. What were your roles?
Started in junior high and then moved into high school. I was in the quartet in The Music Man.
Nice.
I played Rolf in Sound of Music. By the time I got to my senior year, I was really excited because this hot new musical Godspell was, blowing.
Edgy.
Very edgy and blowing. And I was like, oh gosh, I really want to play the lead in that and don't know if I'll get it. And then this new guy that moved into town and he looked just like the guy on the record jacket. And I was like, oh, there goes my shot. And anyway, I ended up getting the role. And
you were Jesus?
I was Jesus.
In Godspell.
But Jesus is called Stephen in the musical.
Yes.
I don't know if you knew that.
But
But
he's Jesus.
He's Jesus. and then so I did that, and it was picketed because it was too crazy religious or whatever. I don't know.
It was too
much.
It was too close to religious, but not close enough.
Yes, and too playful, I think.
Oh, sure.
That's what people thought or whatever.
Yeah.
But we were sold out every night and then extended for 2 more weeks. And then the following year, which was my freshman year in college, they asked us, the entire cast, to come back and do it again. And so we did it. So it became this sort of like big deal. And it was really fun to do, but I was really ready to step away from it and move on. And
it's the Sound of Music of Indiana.
Sound of Music of Indiana.
Keep bringing back Godspell.
Less mountains.
That's right.
Less mountains, but very religious.
Yeah, a lot more religion, less mountains.
So I grew up there. I went to Indiana University. I actually went to the University of Evansville my freshman year, which is a small college. And then I went to Indiana University and then right away moved to New York. And
were you in theater there?
Doing that. Yeah, I was a theater major.
Okay.
And did a bunch of shows there. And I felt like, oh, I'm ready, but I don't. This was early 80s. Moving to New York, I'm like ready, but don't really know anything.
Did you move by yourself to New York?
I did, with $500 to my name.
And just like, I'm going to go find a place to live.
I'm going to go figure it out. I'm going to go. And this has been a thing in my life. I like to go places where I don't know anyone. And sometimes where I don't speak the language and I don't have any money, to find out what I'm made of, because I think there's a lot of merit in that, putting yourself in those kind of situations. And sometimes it's horrible and sometimes it's amazing. So there's a gamut. You can find it. I somehow figured it out, and I had sent a resume into the J.H. Cargill producing company right before I graduated college, because I met a Follies director.
I gotcha.
In Indiana.
Okay.
And he wrote a cover letter for me, and I sent it into the company, and they responded almost immediately and say, we don't need other directors right now, but we'll keep you on file. So I moved to New York.
And Cargill, their main thing was Follies.
Yes.
And explain what Follies was at that period of time.
So the Follies were started by Jerry Cargill in 1919, and it was this whole idea of going into communities, and this, obviously long before television, long before anything, where communities had to make their own entertainment, to go in, work with the service organization to help produce it, use community members. We would bring all the costumes in, and they'd put on a little variety show, and the variety show would raise money for something. And so I never met Jerry Cargill. I met his wife. She was a kick. But he had a heart attack and was in the hospital right when I first moved to New York, and right as I got hired. But his wife, Dorothy, was just this little kick of a woman that I knew for another 5, 6, 7 years. And they hired me, and the kind of funny thing is, like, I didn't know what I was going to do. I only had $500 to my name. So I found a place to stay with a friend, and there I was. Went out one day. I got a job waiting tables at a diner, and I got a job answering telephones.
Okay.
Telephone message machines were just brand new, and not everybody had one, but someone gave me one for a graduation present. So I had one in my apartment that I was staying in, and I went out that day. The best was I tried to get a typing job, and they're like, you know how to type? And I was like, yeah. And they gave me a typing test, and they're like, you type 10 words a minute. That's not going to work. I was like, I thought it was good. Anyway, I came home that night, and there was a message on my machine to come in for an interview with Cargill Productions. So I never took those jobs.
Oh.
And so I went in for an interview 2 days later, and they sent me. My first job was in Waycross, Georgia. And I've been directing Folly shows around the country for 44 years.
So you were living in New York, but not really living in New York.
No,
you were traveling the whole time.
Just the summers. I was spending my summers in New York, which is when everyone leaves New York.
Yeah.
So I would come back at the end of a season, like the spring season, and then have the summer in New York. And then I would go start shows in the fall.
Yeah.
Occasionally a summer show here and there, but very rarely. And
I think I saw you in New York during the summer.
You did.
We were there visiting. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
And that's been fun because when I was living still in New York, lots of people that I'd met here came and visited, and people from all over the country. But I think one of the coolest things, and going back to your community building, is that even before I realized that's mainly what the show was about, the whole thing was about, was community building. With Cargill, you never got sent back to the same place twice.
Oh.
That was a choice they made because they didn't want you making too many attachments that you would go back and direct their next show. They felt like if they sent you back more than one time, that people would say, hey, well, why don't you just ditch the company and we'll just do that. So I worked for them for 10 years. Then I started my own business in 1995. And once I started doing that, I had all this repeat business.
Yeah.
So from 95 to 2025, I have all of these communities across America that I have worked with generations. So, and that's been a really interesting thing. So I feel in a way that I have lots of hometowns across America. And that's a very unique thing to have, and to feel that you're a part of something, even though you never lived there. And I felt that here initially, because I would come back every 3 years, and I was like, oh, I'm coming back to my little hometown, my friends here. And then it got strong enough that when I decided to leave New York and start Hot August Nights and start working at the winery, that it felt right. It felt really good. I was ready for a change.
Well, honestly, Jamie, you've got a big personality and so much energy when you do come into town. And every time I would hear about Follies, before I was in Follies, it would be like, oh, Jamie Donegan's coming. Everyone was so excited when Jamie would come to town because you would bring the energy and you'd bring the joy of theater, that you could come in and just you were the Pied Piper and we would go along. And it was so much fun. I mean, it is so much fun to do Follies because that's kind of the energy that you've got a lot of people that really, they don't have to know much about theater. They'll just be told what to do and it'll be great.
Yeah. It's funny. A lot of people say they get Jamie Donegan, which means they come to be in 1 or 2 numbers and then they end up in 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And I have since time been Jamie Donegan by other people like Amy Edwards and Ernest and all these local people here who have Jamie Donegan me into things like that. So I know what that feels like. But yeah, that's what I do.
That's what and you do it great.
It's fun.
And it's a lot of fun. So the Follies, is Cargill still around?
It is not. It went away, I don't know, probably about 12 or 15 years ago.
Okay.
They still continue to do a few shows here and there, but they're done now. And there was one other guy who had been a Cargill director who was doing them for a little while, but I think he's completely gone now. So I'm the last guy doing it, and it's sad to watch it go away. End of an era kind of a situation in a lot of towns. A lot of times just for financial reasons, and people don't want to spend a lot of time working on things. Like, to work on a project for a month is too much for a lot of people now. Their attention spans are like this.
Well, and just to be clear, this is what, 2.5 weeks of rehearsal? It's not much.
No,
we don't have any shows that we can turn up in that amount of time.
Yeah.
It's a really quick show, and it's a really small time commitment for people.
Yep.
And what you've been able to do in those 2.5 weeks, and it's intense. If you're in all of the numbers, if you're in the ensemble, if you're in 6 or 7 numbers, it's busy.
Yeah, some people have to be in every number. They just, that's their nature. They're like, I want to be in everything, and which makes it hard for costume changes and that sort of thing. Well, I don't know who's recruiting this year, but I've had a lot of young guys come up and say, "Hey, we're doing the Follies this year." I was like, "Great. That's awesome," because we always need guys. You know, that's the women come out in full force every time, but getting the guys out there, and I think they get it. And for the last 3 shows, for some reason, everybody says, "Well, this is your last show, so I really wanted to be part of it." And then I go, Have you talked to my accountant? Because I don't think that's true. Like, I'm probably going to do this until I die, but.
As long as people keep turning up, as long as the party has people.
Right.
Yeah.
But at this point, as far as Follies goes, I only have a handful around the country. It's the Guild has gone through a transition and started off as something that primarily was attached to the hospital, or they would raise money for the hospital.
Well, it was like the Ladies Hospital Guild. It was Doctors' Wives is who it started off with. And of course that had to change, but it's still it's the Wenatchee Valley Follies Guild.
It's now called the Wenatchee Valley Children's Guild.
Oh.
So all of the money that they raise goes towards all these children's programs.
Oh, okay.
And they have a couple of other things, like they have a house that they use for people to stay in when someone in their family is going through cancer treatments or something like that. So they're doing such great things in the community, and this is their main fundraiser.
Yeah.
And usually raises a couple of $100,000, which is great. And that's grown quite a bit since I first started. I think the first show that I did here maybe raised about $25,000 or something like that, but it's grown quite a bit. And so I'm thrilled to be a part of that. That's to be a catalyst for making a show that raises a lot of money for a community. That's across the board, all across the country, wherever I go. That has been something that gives my work purpose and makes me feel worthwhile more than anything. So I've been an extremely lucky person to have traveled. I've done shows in 38 states, and to have helped raise money for communities is an incredible thing, and have fun. And I made great friends all over the place.
That's awesome.
Lucky guy.
No, you've helped out the theater community here in Wenatchee, and
This is not a martini, by the way.
Oh,
it's
it
just water.
Been. Yeah.
Next time, martinis.
Next time, martinis. No, I am so glad to have you here in Wenatchee. And I mean, you before you would show up every 3 years, but now we get to see you multiple times a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful.
I am so thankful that you could also be on the podcast. I don't know if there's anything else you want to cover before we head out.
Follies kickoff party is the 10th of January, and then we cast the whole show on the 11th, and we move forward.
Yeah. And you can go to the Follies on February 5th, 6th, and 7th, I think is when the Follies are going to be.
2 shows on the 7th.
And yes, 2 shows on the 7th. And then Hot August Night, 1776 will open up, I think it's the 31st of July.
It is, yeah. This year, I decided to do our little kickoff party on the 4th of July. So we're going to get together a little bit earlier in the day and then go watch the fireworks and
Perfect.
Realize what this is all about.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're tying it all together.
Tying it all
1776.
together.
You got to wait till August because otherwise hot August nights, you can't do it in July.
No. Well, we made an exception this year just the way the calendar lined
Yeah.
up. But we're opening on the 31st of July, and then it's the first 2 weeks in
August.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if you are listening to this, we don't have theater opening up shortly, but it is going to be starting up. We've got the Minutes on the 22nd, and Kashmir High School show will be opening up at the end of the month. So then you'd be able to go to an opening night. But until then, go out to the auditions. Get yourself involved. Get involved in 1776. Get involved in Follies. Get involved with LST. We've got a lot of stuff coming up, but whatever you do, make sure you go out and enjoy the next opening night.
Well, auditions are the real opening night.
Oh, there we go.
I had to.